Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and the dark history that no one talks about. They wear plastic and metal armor, helmets instead of hero masks. Under the floodlights, they look like gods. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow. But when the applause dies down, something else remains. Bruises, broken bones, flickering memories. American football isn't a game. Or is it? It's also a battlefield wrapped up in advertising, national anthems, and fireworks. Tonight, we look behind the show. We ask, when did a game become a cultivated war? And why can't we stop watching? Imagine a stadium. The lights are still on, but the stands are empty. No cheering, no whistling, just the soft wind rustling through the seats. A single ball lies on the turf. Silent, waiting. A few hours ago, tens of thousands of people were shouting, singing, arguing here. Now, there is only this quiet echo in the air. And an object, round or almost round, shaped to fly, roll, bounce. Imagine walking slowly down the steps. Your footsteps echo. You step onto the grass, which is still warm from the day, from the light, from the weight of players and fans. In front of you is the ball. You look at it, and then you turn back an invisible dial inside yourself. You don't see the ball itself. You see the time around it. The colorful advertising banners disappear. The giant screens flicker out. The loudspeakers fall silent. The modern metal framework of the stands dissolves. Layer by layer, the present peels away like skin that has grown too old. What remains is earth, trampled, hard, and people without helmets, without logos, without sponsors. Warriors. You see them in front of you. Bodies painted, sweaty, hands full of fear and adrenaline. They stand facing each other. No referee, only glances, only an unspoken law. Today, someone will lose. And then you see something rolling, round, heavy, still warm. Some stories whisper that the first ball people chased after was not a harmless fear, but a head, not as a proven truth, but as an echo, as a dark shadow in old tales, where losing a game could mean losing your head, literally. Today, we call it sport. We think of Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, of stadiums where these people are celebrated like demigods, of points, of records, of fantasy leagues. We see Carlos Alcaraz gliding almost silently across the tennis court, young, elegant, perfectly controlled. We see Scottie Scheffler bending over the ball on the green, calm, focused on a seemingly peaceful Sunday. We see money, fame, careers. We see games. What we hardly see anymore, the fields where defeat was more than just a bad night. The courts where a single mistake made the difference between honor and the final step. This is not a story about tactics or records. It is a story about blood, power, and the dark hunger that lies beneath the shiny surface of our favorite games. Join Wonderworld on a journey back in time and find out why the ball is still rolling and what it's really chasing. Close your eyes, breathe calmly, and when you see the next images in front of you, remember, today it's just a game. Back then, it was sometimes a matter of life and death. Imagine heat, not the shimmering warmth of a summer day in the park, but a heavy, dense, almost sacred heat. Before you lies a long stone plaza, framed by high walls. No grass, only smooth, hard ground that echoes every impact. It is Mesoamerica, centuries ago. Here, among the Maya, the Aztecs, and other cultures, what we call ball game is not a pastime. It is a ritual. The ball is heavy. It is made of rubber, dense, plump, almost alive. When it hits the stone, it sounds dull, like a heartbeat. You don't hear pop songs, no stadium announcements. You hear drums, flutes, choirs singing ancient songs whose words sound as if they are speaking to the gods rather than humans. The players don't wear jerseys. They wear protection on their hips and shoulders, sometimes elaborate belts, feathers, jewelry. Their bodies are not just athletes' bodies. They are part of a ritual image, a living prayer. For many of these cultures, the ball is more than just an object. It is a symbol. Sometimes it represents the sun, the course of the stars, the order of the cosmos. When the ball touches the wall, is passed through rings, when it remains in motion, then the order of the world also remains in motion. If you lose, it is not just a defeat. It is a failure before the gods. Some chroniclers who only saw this world from the outside later wrote that at the end of such games, it was not only the ball that left the field, that some players, or prisoners, did not go home at the end of the ritual. Whether it was always the losers who were sacrificed, whether it was sometimes the winners, or whether much of it is legend, historians still argue about this today. But the image remains. Drums, shouts, the rubber ball flying through the air like a small black sun. One last bounce, one last echo, and somewhere in the shadows, a crowd watches every detail, not out of boredom, but out of fear, out of hope, out of a deep desire that the world does not lose its balance. Today, children play with light balls in the garden. They laugh, they stumble, they get back up. No one thinks about the sun, about gods, about sacrifices. But in these ancient cities, under these heavy skies, the ball was part of a cosmic calculation. The heavens wanted something. People gave something. And in between, a ball rolled. Some stories still whisper that the difference between a ball and a head was sometimes only in the meaning attributed to them. ball or head, game or sacrifice, movement or end. The ball flies. The crowd holds its breath. And deep down, even today, we know that feeling. The next point will decide everything. Let's jump far away from the stone temples of Mesoamerica to narrow streets, cold wind, and gray skies. It's a winter day in a medieval village somewhere in Europe. The streets are muddy. People's breath rises white into the air. A bell rings. Today is no ordinary day. Today is game day. But what they call game here has little to do with what we understand as soccer, rugby, or football. There are hardly any rules, no clear playing field, no fixed teams with numbers and positions. There are only 2 points, here and there, our village and the other village. The ball is sometimes made of leather, sometimes of scraps of fabric sewn together, sometimes barely recognizable as a ball. It is thrown into the crowd, and then all hell breaks loose. Don't imagine 22 players. Imagine 100, 200, almost the entire village. Men, sometimes teenagers, sometimes even older men who want to give it another go. They run, push, pull, tear. They stumble through narrow alleys, through mud, over fences, between houses. Shutters slam shut. Mothers pull their children into the house. Because when the ball comes, chaos comes with it. Injuries are normal. Broken bones, knocked out teeth, sometimes worse. The chroniclers of that time dryly mentioned that it was not unusual for someone not to survive the day during these games. And yet, people returned every year. Why? Because it was more than just a wild scramble for a ball. It was an outlet, controlled but dangerous chaos, in which old enmities, pent-up anger, honor, and pride collided. The village itself was the opponent, not just the men you saw, but the pride, the history, the stories told around the fire. Over time, kings and city councils became nervous. They saw the injured. They saw the dead. And they saw how difficult it was to tame this chaos. Again and again, they tried to ban such games. Too dangerous, too uncontrollable, too close to real violence. But people's need to challenge each other on a field or in the streets could not be so easily banned. So, something strange happened. Slowly, over decades, over centuries, the chaos was cast into rules. Lines were drawn. Teams were established. Fouls were defined. Referees were introduced. The raging chaos that could engulf entire villages gradually gave way to the precursors of soccer, rugby, and later American football. But when you watch a game today, hear the fans chanting, feel the crowd pushing and shoving, witness the rivalry between cities, clubs, colors, you may still sense a faint echo of those old days. Back then, no one kicked anyone in the head anymore. At least, not literally. But sometimes it seemed that way, because behind every kick, every push, every hard-fought ball, there was more than just fun. It was about pride, about the feeling of belonging, about the need to achieve a clear victory, at least for a moment, in a world full of uncertainty. The ball rolls through the mud. People stumble, shout, laugh, scream. Above it all hangs this strange thought. It's just a game. But today, right now, it feels like everything. Let's move on, away from the muddy village streets, toward open fields, shiny horses, and men who believe they are above others. Imagine a wide plain. The sky is clear, the air dry. On one side, riders. Their horses are strong, trained, pawing the ground restlessly. In their hands, long mallets. The game is called polo. For many centuries, it was not a harmless equestrian sport, but training for warriors, for men who were used to chasing not only balls with their horses and weapons, but also enemies. They chase after a small ball, drive it across the field, accelerate, brake, turn abruptly. Horses almost collide with each other. Mallets whiz through the air. One wrong move, and not only the ball, but a body can go down. Later, this sport is taken up by nobles and officers, including in the British Empire, India, and vast colonies. There, polo becomes a symbol. Those who play belong. Those who only watch remain below the line. The pattern repeats itself. A game is never just a game. It shows who has power, who has horses, weapons, time, and health to afford such a thing. At the same time, in other courts and monasteries, another game emerges, a precursor to tennis. Imagine an enclosed courtyard, surrounded by walls. It smells of stone, dampness, old halls. Men hit a ball with their hands, later with rackets, against the walls. The rules are still in flux, but one thing is clear. This is not a game for everyone. It is a game for those who do not toil in the fields, but walk in halls. Over the centuries, this develops into the tennis we know today. No blood, no horses, no armor, just a net, clear lines, balls flying brightly and lightly across the court. And yet, beneath the smooth surface lies layers of discipline and toughness. When Carlos Alcaraz glides almost weightlessly across the hard court today, fast, precise, young, we see perfection and talent. What we hardly see, the endless hours of training, the strict structures, the boundaries between those who are allowed into this world and those who remain outside. It is similar with another quiet game, golf. Imagine a golf course early in the morning. The fog still hangs over the lush green. Everything seems peaceful, almost gentle. A player stands calmly, club in hand, his gaze focused on a small white ball. Today, that player could be Scottie Scheffler, calm, focused, surrounded by cameras, sponsors, gentle commentators' voices. Golf seems like the opposite of war. No shouting, no tackles, just quiet precision. But here too, the course itself is a boundary. For a long time, golf courses were places for the elite. Membership was a seal. You belong to us. You are allowed to play here. Those who didn't have the right name, the right money, the right skin color, the right gender, were excluded. Games, whether loud or quiet, whether on horses or on manicured lawns, always served to demonstrate power and defend power. One wrong stroke, one wrong word, one violation of unwritten rules, and you didn't risk your life, but often your position, your place in society. Today, we see Carlos Alcaraz's elegant forehand winners. We see Scottie Scheffler sinking a putt. We count points, titles, prize money. But deep down, an old truth resonates. The ball, whether large or small, made of rubber or plastic, only moves because people move it. People with history, with power, with boundaries, with expectations. And so, here too, a small ball not only rolls across grass or sand, but also through invisible lines between classes, nations, winners, and losers. We return to noise, to bodies colliding, to a sport that sometimes feels like a miniature war. Imagine a wide, green field divided into lines. At the edges, stands, voices, flags. On the field, two teams, an oblong ball, helmets, shoulder pads. American football. Its roots go back to the chaotic mass brawls we just saw. Mob football. Later, rugby. Rugby itself seems like a tamed mess. Lots of physical contact, but embedded in fixed rules. You can be tough, but not without limits. American football goes one step further. It takes the chaos and organizes it like a military operation. The line of scrimmage is like an invisible front line. Players on both sides, ready to throw themselves at each other with full force at the next snap. Helmets glisten in the light. Shoulder pads creak. The air is electrically charged. The language we use reveals how we see this sport. We talk about offense and defense, about blitzes, about bombs, about headhunting, about destroying the quarterback. Sometimes you even hear phrases like, "We want his head." Of course, this is just figurative language. No one really loses their head here. Not like in the old stories. And yet, this language echoes times when games and violence were not clearly separated. Today, when Patrick Mahomes, that young quarterback with the impossible throws, throws a perfectly aimed pass, as if he were bending time itself, we see perfection. Tom Brady, the veteran, the quarterback who turns games around at the last second, as if he had made a pact with something older. Justin Jefferson, whose catches are so elegant that they almost seem unreal. Or Joe Burrow, calm in the pocket while everything around him collapses, as if he knows that the next moment will decide everything. Then they are heroes of a modern arena. The stadium lights up. The cameras zoom in. Fantasy football managers cheer or despair. The players wear numbers, statistics, contracts. Their bodies are insured, their careers protected by rules and associations. But every tackle, every hit, every clash of helmets reminds us that this sport has its origins in very real, very physical confrontations. The ball here is a tamed war, a shaped, predictable, repeatable duel in which pain and risk are part of the system. When the crowd roars, "Defense!" when commentators talk about battles in the trenches, we sense that these metaphors are not chosen at random. In the past, real battles decided territory, power, and life. Today, games decide league positions, contracts, fame, and legendary status. But the emotion, the rush in the stomach when a final pass is caught or dropped in the end zone, that is ancient. It is the same emotion that once burned on battlefields, in village streets, and on sacred ritual grounds. The difference? Today, there are cameras in between, rules, referees, doctors on the sidelines. In the past, there was sometimes nothing between the ball and the head. Now, we go into a hall, into light that does not come from the sun, but from lamps above a shiny wooden floor. It's in the end of the 19th century. A man named James Naismith is looking for a way to keep his students busy in the winter. He wants them to exercise without constantly injuring themselves, as they do in rough outdoor games. So he invents basketball. One ball, 2 baskets, a few simple rules. The idea is civilized, almost educational. Less chaos, less blood, more control. And indeed, compared to many other sports, basketball seems more harmless. No helmets, no tackles like in football, no horses, no bats. Just bodies jumping, running, throwing. But here too, we see a time when physical education was still closely linked to discipline, order, and preparation for a hard life in factories, in armies, in a world in transition. The ball flies through the air in an arc, sometimes touching the ring softly, sometimes the backboard, sometimes nothing at all, and falls through the net. A soft rustle, almost soothing. But the structures behind it are anything but soft. Training, drill, hierarchies within the team, pressure to perform. Later, in the 20th and 21st centuries, basketball arenas became places of spectacle, glamour, and cutthroat careers. Here too, there are heroes, million-dollar contracts, fan cults. The ball is light, but the pressure is heavy. And yet, when you stand in an empty gym at night, alone, and hear a single ball bouncing, over and over, it almost sounds like a heartbeat. Tamed chaos, confined between lines and rules, a distant descendant of all the games we have seen. Games in which, in the past, you sometimes lost more than just a tournament. Today, the most you lose is your head on television when the pressure becomes too great, when the mistake becomes a headline. But language does not forget so quickly. It carries old images forward, even if we only half understand them. Let's go back to the stadium, to the hall, to the golf course, to the tennis court. The games are over. The spotlights dim. Crowds of spectators head home. The cameras are turned off. At the end, the same thing often remains on each of these fields. A ball, silent, waiting. Beneath the turf of modern arenas, beneath old stone courts, beneath hall floors and training fields, lies layers of stories, of warriors who played for honor, of villages that vented their anger in the game, of priests who hoped for the right results for their gods, of nobles who showed who was allowed to belong, of workers, soldiers, children, and professionals. Today, we see Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, Carlos Alcaraz, Scottie Scheffler, and many others. We see records, highlights, memes, fantasy points, and commercials. But deep down, beneath every slow-motion replay, beneath every cheer, something older whispers. It's just a game. But it was never just a game. Maybe we don't hunt heads anymore. Maybe a lost match no longer ends on a sacrificial altar, but in a locker room, in a disappointed interview, in an angry comment on the internet. But every time a ball starts rolling, it chases something else. Our attention, our instincts, our hunger for victory, for belonging, for stories that are bigger than ourselves. The stadium grows quieter. The hall falls silent. The field lies there as if nothing had ever happened. But when everything is quiet, does it really sound like the end of a game? Or like the faint echo of an old ritual that we wanted to forget long ago? The next time you cheer, shout, curse, or simply watch in fascination as a ball flies through the air or rolls across the ground, ask yourself for a moment, who is the ball really rolling for? For players? For gods? For the powerful? Or perhaps for something within yourself that has always been there? Now, pull your blanket up a little higher and relax. The ball lies still. The voices of the past grow quieter. For today, your journey with Wonderworld comes to an end. We look forward to seeing you again the next time you join us, deep in the shadows of the past, where even a simple ball can tell a very, very dark story.